Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Guilty as Charged podcast. We've got a fun episode for you guys today. I was able to interview Michigan running back Chris Evans. So we'll be able to do that interview first. And then we're going to do a 5-round mock draft for the Chargers today, kind of alternating and discussing each of our picks. So Tyler's going to get the first pick, Alex will get the second, I'll get the third, and then just kind of bouncing off ideas after each pick. We're also going to talk about a certain mock draft from Brentley Weissman, who did have the Chargers trading back in the first round, I believe, with the Chicago Bears. So we'll talk about kind of that approach and the possibilities for the Chargers in that regard. So let's start. Tyler and Alex are here as well. Alex, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing pretty good. Getting closer to the draft, and we should start to see some interesting news. Maybe Von Miller's release. We'll see.
Yeah, obviously, if Von Miller gets released, we will talk about that right now. It doesn't really seem like that's actually going to happen. It seems like that was more of a prediction. So I know some people are asking me about that. Tyler, how are you doing today, dude?
Well, I know we're getting closer to the draft. I just looked at when Virginia Tech's pro day was going to be, and that's March 26th. That sounds so far away. We're getting there, but oh man, this is brutal.
Yeah, we're like so close. There's like 70 days until the draft, but it's like
Uh,
it seems like so long.
uh,
But we are getting closer. Teams can start placing players on the franchise tag next week, and obviously we talked about Hunter Henry a couple weeks ago, so things should be picking up soon. And I'm expecting that we hear a couple quarterback trades before the new league year starts in March, so it's gonna be fun. All right, let's get to this interview with Chris Evans. It's going to be audio only. So if you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you go and check that interview out on whichever podcast platform you're listening to, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, whatever the case may be. Because it was a really good conversation I was able to have with him, and I think he's a really interesting target for teams in general. I thought he had a really good week down at the Senior Bowl. So if you're listening to this on the audio version, here you go. If you're watching this on YouTube, go make sure you check it out. All right, here you go, guys. All right, so special thanks again for Chris Evans, to Chris Evans, excuse me, for taking the time out to come on the podcast. He's living in the Midwest, and so a little crazy time right there in the Midwest with like crazy power outages and the snow and stuff. I don't think I've ever seen a snow day like that in Utah, let alone in Texas and Oklahoma and things like that. So I can't imagine what's going on there. If any of our listeners do, if any of our listeners are living there in the Midwest, please let us know. Make sure you're okay, and hoping for you guys to be safe with all your families and stuff like that. All right, so let's talk about Brentley Weissman's mock draft and trading down. I think all three of us would be in favor of that approach. But Alex, where could you see the Chargers potentially doing that? Do you think it's a realistic possibility? Just your overall general thoughts on trading back.
I think it's a realistic possibility. I mean, you look at some of the teams that are behind the Chargers in the draft that need a quarterback. Washington is there. New England is slightly behind them. Chicago, who Brentley traded down with, is a potential option. I think you're looking at all those teams who need a quarterback, and Mac Jones or Trey Lance is still on the board. I think you'll see teams trying to jump up to 13 or maybe a little bit earlier. But I think that that's a prime spot for teams to trade up. And I think it makes sense for the Chargers to trade down because I think you can still get a pretty good offensive lineman at 20. And then you give yourself probably an extra pick to start the second round, right? Similar to, I guess, what the Chargers did with Kenneth Murray last year with the Patriots, but kind of on the receiving end of that. So I think it's possible that they can trade down. And I would be in favor of it just from a value standpoint because I think they need I guess more talent this year and more rookie contracts that they can get use out of.
no, that's spot on. And I wouldn't trade as far back as like the 30s. Just using the simulation, I've seen a couple of times where like Tampa Bay wants to trade up. I know this is all fiction; it's just a simulation, but I wouldn't trade that far. Some of the
Yeah,
targets on TDN's board, I'm not a huge fan of. I'm at least in that range. But trading back is certainly a realistic option. I also wouldn't rule out. Again, I know the board on TDN is not everybody's board, but the opportunity to draft guys like Osai or Phillips or even Ojulari, like some of these guys back there, I know it's kind of O line or bust, but trading back and then using some of those second round picks on like some interior guys or like a Hudson or Raduns, I'm a fan of too.
Yeah, no, I think trading back, I'm always a fan of that. We've never really seen Tom Telesco do that. In fact, we've never seen Tom Telesco do that. We've only seen him trade up for Melvin Gordon and trade up for Kenneth Murray. We've never seen him trade back. So maybe that's the trend that he breaks this year. I would be a fan of that. But I agree with Tyler. The furthest I personally would trade back would probably be 21 with the Colts. You know, if we're talking about trading up our opportunities, like obviously it takes two to tango. And it would be a team looking to trade up for a quarterback. And so, you know, that conversation starts. I mean, maybe the Patriots would trade up 2 picks, but I doubt it. So that really is Washington, Chicago, Indianapolis. And that really is as far back as I could go. Maybe Pittsburgh at 24, but you know, they are so stretched thin with the cap space that they need all the picks that they can get as well. So it'll be really interesting. You know, Tyler and I were talking beforehand about Teddy Bridgewater, because it seems like the Panthers are going to go all in on trading for a quarterback, whether that be trading up in the draft or trading for Deshaun Watson or whoever the case may be. So Tyler, what were you saying about Teddy Bridgewater and how that could really affect the draft board here?
Depends on what they want to do. I'm surprised nobody's talking about this Teddy Bridgewater potential trade. He was just offered, and like nobody's bringing it up. The fact that his starting quarterback, who's under contract, who's legitimately talented, was just offered up. Let's see. So if they trade him, well, I guess we got to figure out where he gets traded to. But if the Panthers take a quarterback, so we'd have, can I have to look at my freaking draft log? So we would have Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson. The Panthers would probably try to take a guy. Listen, if Mac Jones, for whatever reason, goes in the first 12 picks, that is a huge, like, because the Panthers now take a quarterback and then Denver freaks out and takes Jones or something. That's a huge win. So for me, the Panthers becoming quarterback needy and not trading for another quarterback that's already in the league and just trading up for a quarterback and making other teams panic and try to even jump the Chargers or trade with the Chargers so they can trade back, I think is a win for the Chargers, because I mean, there's good talent here. And considering, you know, Chase, Smith, Waddle, Pitts, one of the corners are all going to be taken for the Chargers. They're in a really good spot to take like a Slater or Darius, or even if they trade back, to have both those guys potentially make it there.
Yeah, I mean, I think the furthest I would probably trade down. Yeah, I think 21 or 22 is probably the furthest I would trade down. So 21 with the Colts. I think the Steelers are at 24, but I think that would kind of be going down too far. And like, you know, Steven said, they kind of need some draft capital and instead of, you know, mortgaging to trade up. So yeah, I would probably just trade down there. And then I don't know. I think there's not really a lot of other teams I could see at this current stage. Yeah. I'm not against the possibility of trading down, but I sort of doubt that Telesco does it just because he kind of needs a sexy pick right now, whether that's an offensive lineman, a corner, something else. I think that 13th pick is the option there. I don't see him trading up or trading down just because I think they're fine where they are. You know, but before in previous mock drafts, back in November and December, there was like momentum when they had like the 4th and 5th pick. And that would certainly be fun. But I think at 13, it's kind of a perfect place for them because they don't really need to go up and grab a quarterback anymore. So I think they're just going to stay put.
I do think we also have to consider, though, that Staley, I think, might have a bit more of a say in this roster than the previous 2 coaches.
Yeah.
And truly, analytics or whatever you want to call it, say that trading back for them is a good idea because of, you know, the cap space situation, the fact that even if they pick up a 5th and 6th round pick and get more special teams players, you know, Staley does want an offensive lineman, so I could see them staying put. Well, sorry, I don't know that he wants an offensive lineman at 13, but it really seems like the Chargers want to do that, and they should do that. But I do think, you know, I think he could figure out that trading back still gives them that option and still lets them do a bunch of other things. So I think it's the smartest move, and I think Staley's a guy that would go to bat for that.
Yeah, you know, I think objectively someone could look at the Chargers roster and, you know, he was talking with Chris Collinsworth and Richard Sherman. You know, they have the franchise cornerstones in place, with Derwin James, Joey Bosa, Justin Herbert, Keenan Allen, Austin Eckler. Like, you have the key pieces, right? But the depth on this team is just so lacking. And like you mentioned, the special teams, like that's where all the depth is coming from and missing. So trading back, I think, would be a huge fit. Like, it would be a huge win, even if you just get like, you trade down to 19 with Washington, and get an extra third round pick, maybe like next year's fifth. Like, I think that was the trade that Brentley Weissman did. I think that would be a huge win, being able to have 3 third round picks. Like, I think that would be an awesome scenario. So in our mock draft that we're about to do, we are not going to trade back. We're going to stay with the picks as is, and we're going to get started with this. So Tyler is going to pick first. He's got the 13th pick. Alex is going to get picked second. I will pick third, and then we'll go 1, 2, 3 again. Whoever is picking is going to make their selection. It's just going to be up to Tyler, up to Alex, up to me. And then the other 2 of us are going to offer our thoughts on that selection. So we did a mock draft earlier where it was like we talked about all the players on the board, and it took us like 45 minutes to do 3 rounds. So we decided to do this way and have a little more discussion, but to be a little more clear and concise and be able to just have one person make the pick, I think is a big win. So I'm going to share my screen right now and pull up the Draft Network, and then we will get started. Okay. All right. So let's start this mock draft. Hopefully it's not a super weird one, because that can. All right.
Trevor Lawrence to the Chargers.
Oh yeah. Oh, this is going faster than I thought it would be. That's okay.
Oh, Waddle's gone. Now I don't have to take him.
Oh, we got a trade call. Nope. Okay.
No,
so we had Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, Jamar Chase, Justin Fields, Penei Sewell, Devontae Smith, Jalen Waddle, Kyle Pitts, Patrick Surtain, Caleb Farley, Kwity Paye, which is super early for him, but if there's a team that'll do that, that would be the Giants. And then Trey Lance at 12. So the Chargers are on the board. Tyler, let me know if you want to see anybody, but I'm pretty sure I know who you're going to choose right here.
Yeah, it's between one of these tackles here: Slater, Cosmi, Darisaw. Me personally, Cosmi would be third on that list. I just think not inconsistent tape, but the ups and downs. When I first watched Cosmi, I immediately direct messaged you and said, "Oh my God, Cosmi, this guy's amazing. Why is nobody talking about him?" Like, and then you're like, "Watch the next game, Tyler." Like, oh, okay, yeah. Gotcha. Yeah. But there's great stuff on there, but still, I would not take them over the other 2. Darisaw, if they're looking at tackles, the Chargers would probably take Darisaw over Slater. I personally like Slater as a tackle more than Darisaw, but the Chargers do like that height, that length. So although the Chargers would probably take Darisaw, I don't care. And I'm going to go ahead and take Rashawn Slater with the 13th pick.
Yeah, I mean, I think Rashawn Slater is definitely the way to go here for me. I think you can make arguments for Cosmi, Darisaw, Vera Tucker too. I think deserves honorable mention because he sort of possesses some of the same versatility as Slater, where he can kind of rotate in and out. But for me, Slater is the overall best lineman here, and for me, the Chargers aren't looking to fill one lineman position; they're looking to fill like 4. So, Slater is definitely the best way. Whether he plays tackle, guard, center at the next level, to me, it doesn't matter. I think you take him just as the overall best talent here. We often say best player available, and he is the best player available on the board right now. I was surprised he kind of flip-flop spots with Micah Parsons and TDN's mocks recently, because I think they were different at 15 and 11 before, but now Slater is ranked at 11. So he's the best player on the board. I think he's the most versatile lineman, and I think he's the guy that, while fans dream of Sewell, he's definitely the guy to build around if he's there.
Absolutely. And the board panning out this way for the Chargers is quite literally the best case scenario.
Yep.
Because you can draft Rashawn Slater. You can play him at left tackle. I think he could do that. I think, some draft analysts are saying that he might project better at right tackle or interior. And that's okay. Frankly, like Alex said, the Chargers just need more talent. They need better players. And so, in this kind of scenario, maybe they could get a Taylor Moton from the Panthers to play left tackle. Rashawn Slater could play guard. And this also opens up the possibility of drafting a tackle in the second round or the third round. So Rashawn Slater, I just think, gives them so many different options, and the Chargers need that. So whether that's Rashawn Slater in this case or Elijah Vera Tucker, like Alex mentioned, I think there is something to be said for drafting just a versatile piece and not necessarily, pigeonholing or pigeon-toeing yourself into an offensive tackle when you could just draft a versatile piece. So I think Slater is 100% the right pick here.
And I believe the Chargers play the Washington football team this year. So another Chase Young matchup on deck.
Oh, yeah, that would be good. So Elijah Vera Tucker went just after us. And, the Chargers now have a Northwestern connection brewing. It's similar to Notre Dame. So it's Notre Dame and Northwestern West.
Wow, Stokes went 28. Oh, my God. I love Stokes. But not at 28. Jesus Christ.
Oh, we got another. How can I turn this sound off? I don't want to trade back.
I can't hear it if that's what you're wondering. Or
okay, cool.
Yeah,
I can hear it. So, all right. So we had another trade back offer. Nope. Okay, so we had Elijah Vera Tucker. Oh, another trade back offer.
Wow,
they're going crazy right now. Tom Telesco's getting all the offers. All right, so we had Elijah Vera Tucker, Micah Parsons, J.C. Horn, Christian Barmore to the Raiders. That's become like a very common selection, just because similar to the Chargers and offensive line, the Raiders just need more talent on defense, and it starts there. Samuel Cosmi, Darisaw to Washington. So there you go. There's your offensive tackle. Rashad Bateman, Terrace Marshall, run of receivers, Kadarius Toney, Joseph Osai, Jalen Mayfield, Tevin Jenkins, Asante Samuel Jr., who just met with the Chargers today. Gregory Rousseau at 27. Like that's a far fall for him, man. Eric Stokes, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, Najee Harris, Zayvon Collins, Jalen Phillips, Pat Freiermuth. That would be a really fun. That would be an awesome pick. Nick Bolton, Azeez Ojulari, Rondell Moore, Aaron Robinson, Greg Newsome, the other Northwestern player, Liam Eichenberg. There's Mac Jones to the Broncos at 41. Jason Owe, Dylan Moses, and Wyatt Davis at 44. So Alex is on the clock. Let me know if you want to see some positions. Otherwise, the time is yours.
Yeah. I don't think Mac Jones is going to go at 41 in real life. I think he's probably going to go a little bit higher just because of the demand of the quarterback position. I think here you have Leatherwood. Obviously, if he's still on the board, I think that's an option for them since we went, Slater, who can kind of slide inside. You can get Leatherwood as a tackle. Dylan Radune's still on the board. Also, not sure if that will hold up in real life, but we'll see. And yeah, then I think you have your kind of run of interior offensive linemen here. You have your Landon Dickerson, your Creed Humphrey. Joe Tyrone is a guy that a lot of people talked about as an edge. I think that would be kind of an interesting direction to go if you want to scroll down a little more. Jatarius Atwell is Tutu Atwell, right?
Yes.
Okay. Just making sure that was his real name. Yeah, I mean, it's a little too early to think about him. But I know we all are big fans of him.
I have Dwayne Eskridge at 61. Whew.
Yeah. Little low for him, I think, but there's a lot of great guys to take here. I think ultimately, based on what's on the board, you're probably going to go offensive line again, just to double up. I think I'm going to go with Dylan Radunes. I like both him and Leatherwood. But for me, just what I saw at the Senior Bowl, what I've seen on his tape kind of consistently, I like him as a better fit kind of in the NFL. And there have been some reps, as Tyler has noted, that Alex Leatherwood doesn't totally give 100% effort. And I'd like to see that a little bit more. But I think Radunes, for what I've seen from him the last couple months, I think that he's just a really interesting, really great prospect for this position.
That's a good call. I was worried you were going to take Leatherwood. I'm just not a biggest fan. I don't hate him. I don't dislike him all that much. I didn't realize you saw some of the laziness too. For some reason, for me, there's something lazy about it. Listen, I never played offensive line. Couldn't tell you what the fuck you're supposed to do.
Oh, I'm way lazier than Leatherwood.
Okay. Anywho, but I think Radunes is a better option there. So you're going Radunes left tackle and Slater at left guard.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's how you could build that out. Then maybe later in this draft you get a center at some point, or you get a Corey Linsley or someone like that in free agency.
Right.
But yeah, no, I think you kind of solved that left side in the first 2 picks of this draft, and that's a really good start.
Yeah, I have a feeling center would kind of get figured out before the draft. If it's not
Yeah.
fine, like they have plenty of options, but it's either going to be Feeney or Lindsley. Like I think there's an option there. And I do like the fact that, a lot of these guys in the interior, you kind of can play different spots. But Dunes took some guard reps at the Senior Bowl.
Yeah.
Slater, obviously you can kick in. Feeney played guard and center. Just because we're keeping Feeney, or if we keep Feeney, doesn't mean that we think he's a great player, but sometimes you just have to make these realistic, bite the bullet kind of moves. The other guy I would consider here, well, I know Steven's a huge Landon Dickerson fan. I just watched his breakdown. It is now available on YouTube. So there's your plug. I also got a shout out for putting little spotlights on players. Davion Nixon's an interesting one for me. I thought he was a pretty decent pass rusher with 0 anchor. Just a little bit worried there. He'd also be a little bit too aggressive and get washed out of play sometimes and just go flying by some guys. I think a couple of read options got to him. So that's another guy I would consider as your 3-4 defensive end. But otherwise, based on the guys that I'm seeing here, it's tempting to take Javonte Williams because I think he's really good. But in the second round, you just can't take a running back, especially not with this team. So, Radune's pretty solid option.
Oh man, Javonte Williams, he's so good.
He's so good.
He's so good. But running back in the second round for the Chargers would be a terrible decision. I love the idea of taking Dylan Radunes here. I think my personal preference right here would be Radunes or Landon Dickerson.
Mm-hmm.
But if they do get Corey Linsley in free agency, then 100% you take the guy who can play tackle or guard. And this really gives the Chargers a lot of versatility, right? You take Rashawn Slater, you can put him at left tackle, right tackle. You can play Dylan Radunes at left tackle, right tackle. They can each play guard. Mm-hmm. And this would just give the Chargers the option to say, you know what, we're just going to put the best 5 players out there on the field. And, in this instance, maybe that would include Sam Tevi at left tackle. I don't really know. But the Chargers just need better players. And I think in this instance, they would get that done.
Yeah, I also think, I was just going to say, it can kind of alternate depending on the round, right? So if you go Darius in round 1, then you can go for like a Creed Humphrey or Landon Dickerson in round 2, and then, vice versa.
Obviously, we'll update our mock draft or do another one post free agency because that will tell us quite a bit. We're not just going offensive line just because that's all we know and that's all we want to do. But I agree that that was a good decision in that round. If some of the edge guys fell, maybe an interior guy, defensive lineman kind of guy, but otherwise I think Radunes was the right call.
No,
and at 61.
Elijah Moore, my guy. Oh man, that sucks. The pick before, man.
Was Elijah Moore the guy who did the fire hydrant pee?
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
I had no idea because Steven told me to make a thumbnail, and I saw that picture and I was like, oh, it's that guy.
Oh man, so funny. But so Elijah Moore right before James Hudson. That would be, if you're taking a corner or an edge or something like that, James Hudson in the 3rd round would have been perfect. Trey Smith in the 3rd round. He's got some health concerns, man, but he is a monster. So 3rd round, that'd be a bargain for.
I think Alex Leatherwood went at 61. Yeah, he went to
Carlos
the Buccaneers
Basham.
Getting freaking Phillips and Atwell makes me angry. It's such a good combo.
Brady's gonna play for 5 more years.
Oh man, Landon Dickerson at 63. Anyways, okay, so at this point, pretty much any other position besides offensive line, I feel like is on the table. Although, in this instance, without free agency, I would 100% take Jackson Carman. And then, you got 3 offensive linemen back to back. But, that's not really a realistic situation. So there's some good edge rushers on the board here. Dio, I'm not even going to try to say that last name. Hamilcar Rashid as a 3-4 offensive outside linebacker, Peyton Turner as a defensive end / outside linebacker, I think would make a lot of sense. Quincy Roche, outside linebacker. Hamza Nasser-Aline, Alex's guy at safety. Elijah Molden at corner. You could go tight end. Did I see Brevin Jordan was on here? No, but Tommy Tremble at tight end. Tommy Tremble is a fantastic blocker, man. And he only had like 20 catches this year at Notre Dame, but I think he has the upside to do that. So tight end would be an interesting one here. I think really this would come down to, a cornerback or an edge rusher, in my personal opinion. Ooh, Demetric Felton.
my pick here, I think if it was up to me, I think it probably would be Quincy Roche. I think that he would be a solid edge guy to get here. But I mean, you could also make an argument for a bunch of the other edges and quarterbacks that are still on the board. But I think really with what's left, it's probably edge or corner in this round based on our first 2 rounds.
Yeah, I don't know how the fit's going to be, but I love a guy like Molden, a guy I just think is a super good coverage corner, so aware, so good at everything, and he's not fast, and that's just going to be a really tough one for him. That's
but I think as a slot corner, right? I think that could be a really good, interesting fit. Obviously, you give him a year to learn behind Chris Harris, and then take over for him, and I think that would be okay. Kelvin Joseph from Kentucky has been getting a lot of hype recently. I personally haven't watched him yet. I've been trying to. I just haven't been able to find much.
Israel Mukuamu is on the board, Steven. You want to take?
No, I'll take a hard pass on Mukuamu. I know lots of Charger fans love him, but I'm out. I'm not dealing with that.
I haven't watched him yet. Not sure.
I like Trill Williams quite a bit. If they want to go in that direction, I don't know if he's a total fit, but if they wanted to do that, I would be down.
Yeah. So to me, I'm debating between Hamilcar Rashed or Dyami Brown is one of my favorite receivers in this class. I think he would be an amazing third round pick. Demetric Felton, also very tempting. Amari Rogers, Tylan Wallace. See, this is why you don't take a receiver in the first round.
Yeah.
Because look at these names right here that you could potentially get. Des Patrick, love him as well. Daz Newsome, Anthony Schwartz, who reportedly runs like a 4.27 40-yard dash and ran a 10.07 100-meter dash in high school. Like, this is why you don't take a freaking receiver in the first round. Anyways, so I'm going Dyami Brown, man. I'm going with the receiver. I'm going to mix it up here because I feel like it's not a huge need, right? But at the same time, like, the Chargers do theoretically need to add some more weapons. And in this case, you give Dyami Brown a year to be a supporting receiver, take over as wide receiver 2, potentially if Mike Williams leaves or prices himself out. So I'm going to go Dyami Brown, receiver from North Carolina, one of the best deep threats in this game. And I think he has the potential to truly become just what the Chargers need in terms of a separator, yards after contact, run after catch. Reminds me so much of Devontae Adams in terms of his route running ability and release package. So
high praise.
It is very high praise. I love Dyami Brown, and this is going to be my selection here.
I'll take Devontae Adams too.
Yeah, that works out. Yeah, I'm all for it. I mean, I probably would have taken more if he was there.
100%.
Might even taken Brevin Jordan. Well, it depends on Hunter Henry, but Brevin Jordan at 77 is pretty tempting. But yeah, I haven't watched Brown, but I trust you on this one. And yeah, let's do it.
Cool.
It'd be nice to have, another really good route runner next to Keenan Allen. That'd be fun.
It would. And that really is what the Chargers need. There's been a lot of people saying that, like, oh, the Chargers need speed. And Dyami Brown is fast, but they need more than someone who's just straight line fast. Like, they need someone to, create windows for Justin Herbert, separate, create easy passes for him. And I think, that is what Dyami Brown could do.
They also already have 2 guys that run in a straight line.
Yes.
Tyron Johnson and Jalen Guyton. So I don't know. Oh, man.
Sheldon would have been my pick.
So here you'll see, this is a really good group, man. Spencer Brown is an offensive tackle there. Javon Holland, Aleem McNeil as an interior defensive lineman, similar to Tyler Shelvin, would fill a big need. Tommy Tremble. Oh, Osa, however you say that last name, went right after Dyami.
Digazua, I think. I don't know.
Good job, Alex. All right, so
Tyler, man, Nasser team went 1 pick before.
Tyler is on the board here, so the time is yours, my friend.
I only see receivers, and I can't take another one.
Sorry.
Oh, okay. Well, listen, I love Tyler Shelvin. I almost have a first round grade on this guy. Everyone just calls him just a run stuffer kind of guy. He does that. He does that very well, blowing up some very, very good offensive lines. But he's gone. So there goes that.
Man, Tyler Shelvin and Vita Vey together. That's just Oh god, that's so good.
That's not
So
fair,
the Bucks
man.
went Phillips, Tutu, Atwell, and Shelvin. That's gnarly.
Some good edge rushers on the board right here.
Mm-hmm. So go show me edge, please. Okay, I'm gonna go a little different, and I personally at this point I'm just going to go with who I feel is best player available, the guy that I have ranked higher than a Quincy Roche. The fit is particularly possibly a question, but I do think at this point with your 4th pick in the draft, I would love to take Patrick Jones here from Pittsburgh. I just think with your 4th pick in the draft, I'm okay taking him here, and I think he's the best player on the board right now.
Alex, your thoughts?
Yeah. I think I have Roche ranked a little bit higher, but Jones is also great. I think that he would be a terrific pick if you can get him at 97. I mean, that's, your sort of your it's their compensatory 3rd round selection. So I think that that's a great pick to have. And they do need an edge. I feel, so if you go corner or wide receiver round 3 before, then I think edge needs to be a pick sometime in round 3, round 4, round 5. I just think you need a little bit more depth there, especially if you're going to let Melvin Ingram walk. So I think Roche is a good start there, but also Patrick Jones I also like a lot.
Yeah, Patrick Jones is just a really violent player, and he's a really athletic kind of guy. Definitely got the physical upside to be someone that would turn into, a draft steal for this kind of situation. Ronnie Perkins from Oklahoma is interesting. Daniel Jeremiah talked about him the other day and has him as a top 50 player. So that would be something to, I'll have to watch more closely. Cameron Sample.
Dalen Hayes is here.
Yeah, Dalen Hayes, our guy in the interview. So Cameron Sample would be interesting too. He would be more of like the 3-4 defensive end. But I think that's kind of a sneaky need too. Jonathan Cooper. This edge class has a lot of sneaky talent, man. And I think, the Chargers would be in a good place waiting until the 3rd or 4th round and taking one of these guys. So I'm A-okay with Patrick Jones. There's Frank Darby, Deontay Smith. Love Deontay Smith out of East Carolina. A lot of versatility there. Someone that could play guard or tackle. Super long arms. He had the longest arms of any offensive lineman at the Senior Bowl. So
wow, Kyle Trask at 110
to the Bengals, man.
Jamie Newman. All right.
So Alex is up here.
Not a lot of guys I love here. Hunter Long was a possible pick, but he's off the board.
Kenny Yeboah at 109.
Kenny Yeboah.
It's a little rich.
I like Tariq Thompson out of San Diego State a lot. I think he's solid, but not on the board anymore. We've taken edge. We've gone 2 offensive line picks and a wide receiver. Can you show me the corner, Steven?
Absolutely.
Okay. Not kind of a lot of great corners here. I don't think you're getting a ton of great value. But it's also tough because, will they be able to wait on corner? I don't know. If you want to scroll back up, Steven. Rodarius Williams out of Oklahoma State is interesting. I've seen a little bit about him. Ambry Thomas is a guy I like a lot, but I still feel like this is a little soon to take him. I feel like he could use a little bit more development. Let's go back to the general players. All right. Yeah, we've really taken edge. That kind of puts. We haven't taken an interior lineman yet, right?
Interior defensive lineman or offensive lineman?
Interior defense.
We have not.
All right, show me the IDLs that are on the board. All right.
So Darius Stills, he has met with the Chargers. Just wanted to point that out.
Darius Stills has met with the Chargers. You have Jalen Twyman. Jalen Twyman was going a lot higher before, so I guess his stock has dipped a little bit. I think Darius Stills is an interesting guy here. I think he firms up the middle quite a bit for them. Yeah. You know what? I think interior defensive line, especially because of, Linval Joseph being in the final year of his deal and the fact that we don't have full confidence in a guy like Jerry Tillery yet, or Justin Jones, really. I would go with Darius Stills here. I think that's a good pick at this rate. I don't fully buy into the corners here. I think you could take one later, other than maybe an Ambry Thomas. But for me, I think you kind of want to go a mix of best player available with the position of most need, and I think that is ideal at this position. So I'm going to go with Stills.
Yeah, I think that would be a really good solid pick. I will say in terms of cornerback right here, Trey Brown from Oklahoma is super interesting. He's a very physical, toolsy cornerback. He's pretty raw, but Matt Nagy said, yeah, or not Matt Nagy, Jim Nagy, excuse me, said that he was the fastest player at the Senior Bowl. So pairing an athletic freak like Trey Brown and Michael Davis together would be pretty tempting, but they theoretically could wait here. Thomas Graham at 196. I don't agree with that ranking. I think Thomas Graham will be a solid pick here as well.
Yeah.
But not enough people are really talking about how much of a need interior defensive line is for the Chargers, because Justin Jones, his contract is up next year. So is Linval Joseph's. So they got to get some depth there, especially if they're going to be playing three interior defensive linemen on in base packages. And so I think, taking one here would be a solid pick.
Yeah, I just think it's a bigger need than people are talking about, like you just said. And the fact that you're, basically franchise defensive lineman is a Linval Joseph, who is a little bit older and, whose contract expires. Telesco could always do one of those, extend and sort of push the money down the road a little bit or open up some salary cap. But I think you need to start getting that guy for the future, when Linval might not be on the team anymore. So I think that starts with Darius Stills.
That's a good call. I haven't watched Stills, but Staley wants to build in the trenches and be a line of scrimmage team. The Chargers did not take a offensive lineman or defensive lineman last year, I believe. So they're kind of not paying the price here, but they kind of are. And that's why we've taken 2 offensive linemen, 2 defensive linemen so far, because they need it. And the contracts are expiring, or they don't have anybody at that position. So this seems like a good pick. I don't know who he is, but good job.
Yeah, really like the depth on the defensive line and offensive line was really like their biggest downfall last year. Taking it's hard to prepare for 6 players taking snaps at right guard, but having better depth and not being able to move guys around and make a patchwork line work. Like even the Chiefs, I know it wasn't pretty in the Super Bowl, but they still weathered the storm from losing Mitchell Schwartz earlier on in the season, and they were still able to get to the Super Bowl. So, and for what it's worth to everybody listening to this, Brandon Staley did call Jerry Tillery an up and comer. So do with that what you will. I don't know how much I buy that, but I can't imagine that Brandon Staley would put his stamp of approval like that on someone without actually thinking that. So just saying. Anyway, so we'll go with Darius Stills.
He's been an up-and-comer since it feels like before Brandon Staley was in the NFL.
There's Ronnie Perkins to Houston. Kellen Mond as Tua's backup. That's interesting. Trey McKitty, the Georgia tight end that I love very much. Des Fitzpatrick to the Ravens. That would be a fantastic pick for them. It honestly would.
I'd do that over trading for Mike Williams, to be honest.
I would too.
Jalen Hayes to the Steelers.
That seems like
Good
a
luck,
Steelers
buddy.
pick. Oh man, the whole thing of JJ Watt to the Steelers just it doesn't make sense to me. Like the Steelers, their cap situation is terrible, and they've got they got to pay Bud Dupree, and I know Villanueva is a free agent, but he's their starting left tackle.
Yeah. I hope he picks the Browns just to spite the whole city of Pittsburgh.
If I were him, man, I would just go ring chasing and go sign with the Chiefs or the Buccaneers.
Yeah.
All right, so Daz Newsome, he's a really interesting guy. Kyle Granson, the tight end from SMU, would have been intriguing here. Not a huge Chuba Hubbard fan. Kerry Vincent, the cornerback. Ben Cleveland, the brick of granite human being. There's Ambry Thomas. Brady Christensen, tackle from BYU. Cameron Sample. There's Darius Williams. Trey Sermon to the Saints. That would be interesting. All right. So this will be our last pick of our 5-round mock draft. Oh, looks like we lost Tyler for a second. Okay. We'll figure it out. So Anthony Schwartz is on the board. I can't go receiver again here. I might. I don't know, but
I'm tempted to go.
I'm tempted to do that too.
For just Anthony Schwartz. Let's see.
Puka Williams, the running back from Kansas. That would be a ton of fun, man. I love Puka.
Yeah, it would be.
Jarrett Patterson, the running back from Buffalo. Khalil Herbert.
I like Khalil Herbert a lot.
Both of those guys met with the Chargers Khalil Herbert met with the Chargers at the Senior Bowl. Patterson met with the Chargers recently. Looks like Tyler is back with us. There he is. What'd you do, man?
I don't know.
Amir, if they want to go receiver, I know we mentioned Anthony Schwartz, but Amir Smith-Marset, I think would be super interesting here if they wanted to go in that direction.
Okay, but show me who's left for Notre Dame players.
Well, there's one. Tommy Craig.
Wait, Steven, click on school and then go Notre Dame. Oh, you can't.
I can't.
I think you could
I can't filter that. Okay, so I feel like in this instance, I feel like they almost have to go with a corner or a safety. You got to add some youth into the secondary.
Yeah.
I don't know who Caden Stearns is, honestly. Bryce Thompson, Derek Forrest, Tyler Gillespie. I think Gillespie. What is that last name from Illinois? Excuse me.
Immature Bebe.
There you go. So I'm going to choose here. My option would be Divine Diablo, the safety from Virginia Tech. He's got a lot of that versatility, that Brandon Staley wants in a safety. Can play like a linebacker, can play like a safety, cover backs, cover tight ends. And then Trey Brown, who I mentioned earlier, just a really high upside, physical, toolsy corner that really feels like somebody that could fit in well with the Chargers. So really just kind of weighing, do I think that the Chargers are going to re-sign Rayshon Jenkins or bring in John Johnson, or are they going to cut Casey Hayward? So I'm going to go with Trey Brown, the cornerback from Oklahoma. Just the idea of having two freaky athletic cornerbacks in the Brandon Staley scheme, I think makes a ton of sense. Being able to have two guys that can physically keep up with the track team in Kansas City, and Henry Ruggs and all those guys in the AFC West, KJ Hamler, who's super fast as well. So I'm going to go with Trey Brown, the cornerback from Oklahoma.
Nice. It seems like there's going to be one position group this year that gets kind of punted to next season. Not that your pick is a punt, but I'm saying, they've got
kind of is. Yeah.
Line. We've got the offensive line figured out. You've got some of the defensive line figured out, and just corner is the position that they're going to have to figure out next season, especially when, Harris and Hayward are gone. So seems like that's what happened today.
It's going to be so interesting to see what this team does with cornerback, man, because cutting Casey Hayward makes a lot of sense. And we talked about this last time, but at the same time, it's like you're talking about cutting Casey Hayward. Like, does it really make sense like on the field, or does it just make sense, in your pocketbook?
Right.
So here are our picks. We had Rashawn Slater in the first round, Dylan Radunes in the second round, De'Ami Brown in the third round, Patrick Jones in the fourth, Darius Stills in the fifth, and then Trey Brown in the fifth, Darius Stills in the fourth, Trey Brown in the fifth. So nice little mix of offense and defense. We went 3 offensive guys in a row and then 3 defensive guys in a row. Guys, your final thoughts on our mock draft?
Yeah, I mean, there were interesting positions where, we could have gone cornerback earlier. We could have gone edge a little bit earlier, but I think it all played out pretty well. I think we got the guys to fill the positions that they need. I guess really the remaining positions here are tight end, which may or may not get filled. Even if they do re-sign Hunter Henry to get maybe like a backup tight end, I don't think that would be a bad idea. But we did fill the trenches quite a bit with 3 lineman picks, and then we got an edge and a corner. So I think we really did a decent job here. Tom Telesco, if you want to call us, we can settle this draft for you.
Anytime, man.
At least the first 5 rounds. No, I think this is. I don't know how the Chargers draft will look by the end of April, but I think in terms of addressing the positions of need while also, taking advantage of value and not reaching, I think this is a pretty good blueprint.
Yep, based on the needs that they have, I think this draft totally works out. I'm sure all guys are going to be all pro and Pro Bowl players because we selected them. But yeah, it makes sense. Every position that we took, I believe there was either a need or a worry next year. It wasn't just that we were filling needs this year. We're also looking ahead to some of the future things like your interior defensive lineman, like potentially wide receiver, like corner. So while we did get some day one starters, I don't know what happened. Where did the draft go? But anyway,
Sorry.
I will at least have 2. Yeah. We'll definitely have a starter in Slater. We'll definitely have a starter, I would think, in Raduns. Patrick Jones wouldn't be a starter. Diami Brown. Diami Brown?
I think it's Diami.
There's no N in there. Oh, Diami. Diami Brown. I don't know if that's really a starter.
I mean, Diami Brown probably fits in the rotation, and he would fight with KJ Hill and all the other guys probably for some snaps too.
Well, I mean,
at the end of the,
I would be drafting Diami Brown to be wide receiver 3. Like that's the point in drafting a guy like him. And there were some other guys in that situation too, but in a 3rd round receiver, I would hope that they could beat out Jalen Guyton and Tyron Johnson. As much as I like Tyron Johnson, I'm a big fan of his, but I think Diami Brown would be the wide receiver 3.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. No, I think that if you get a wide receiver 3 in this draft, I think that's really great. And then, it also sort of lessens the pressure of, maybe having to reach a contract extension with Mike Williams, right? If you get a guy that you can maybe plug and play into CB2 or it's not CB2, wide receiver 2 in the future.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I would be so happy with the first 4 picks of this draft. I mean, I would be lying if I said I've watched a ton of Darius Stills. I've happened to catch him in glimpses when I was watching Samuel Cosmi and Tevin Jenkins, but he seems like a solid player, and he fits what the Chargers need at as a potential defensive end in the 3-4 base or defensive tackle 1 technique. Has a little versatility there. And then Trey Brown, same thing. I haven't watched a ton of him, just kind of caught glimpses of him. But the idea of being able to pair 2, physical freaks at cornerback just makes too much sense. And that's really the difference between, taking a shot on someone like him and like a Keith Taylor from Washington or Rodarius Williams from Oklahoma State is just like you're taking a chance on the tools. And that's really like in the 5th round, like that's really what you're doing is you're taking a chance on somebody. They just took a big chance on Joe Reed because of his physical tools. Obviously, we didn't get to see much of him, but, we'll have to see what that pans out. And getting Slater and Raduns in the first 2 rounds, man, like that's a home run. Like if that happens, I will be so excited because that's 2 day 1 starters. It's 2 guys. I have a 1st round grade on Raduns, and I think he's going to be a fantastic player. So getting those 2 back to back, I think it would be a home run, no brainer for the Chargers.
Yep. Yeah. I think getting 2 offensive linemen, I think just works here. I definitely think based on how a lot of mock drafts have played out that they're going to go offensive linemen in the 2nd for sure, maybe. Just because
for sure maybe,
but just based on what we kind of saw there, it was really Leatherwood, Raduns, and then you had like some running backs, safeties, like not things that the Chargers really should be going for in the 2nd round. So I just feel like in terms of value, I don't know what they're going to do in the 1st round. Maybe Caleb Farley or someone's on the board and they go do that. Or you go for some other position that offensive lineman. But I feel like round 2 is definitely really shaping up to be sort of a O-line pick for sure.
It works that way in the draft network. It just depends on their board. They'll definitely take I think they're taking an offensive tackle at 13. I almost think that's a done deal, as it should be based on who's going to be there, what they need, how they're set everything up. But I could still see them taking an edge. I hope they don't take a receiver in the 2nd round unless someone brilliant falls, because there are some guys that could get pushed that 2nd round, like Steven, that is top 10 list today. There's a lot of guys on there that you could like, but not on the 2nd round. I just couldn't get behind that. If I'm doing anything other than line, it's corner or trenches on the defensive side.
I don't know how this is going to land, but in the second round, I would 100% consider taking Elijah Moore. Like, I think Elijah Moore is exactly what the Chargers need. He's a separator. He's a yards after catch guy. Like everything that I think De'Ami Brown could be, Elijah Moore is right now. And so, I think Elijah Moore should warrant consideration in the second round if they do, get an offensive tackle, offensive lineman in the first round. I kind of agree with Alex though that I think, in the first round, I could see them not taking an offensive lineman, right? Especially if Slater is off the board, because Slater being on the board is a no-brainer, right? Like everybody at worst has him as the second best offensive lineman, but do they really feel that strongly about Elijah Vera Tucker, Christian Darrisaw, or do they want to play the waiting game and say, you know what, we'll take JC Horn, the third best corner, just because that class stacks up differently? Or maybe they say we'll take Azeez Ojulari or Gregory Rousseau because that edge class stacks up differently. So it just kind of depends. And everything that I've been reading is that these NFL teams are all over the map on every single position because they haven't been able to be in person with these guys. They haven't been able to have a combine. And the Pac-12 had 6 games, and the Big Ten had 7 games, and some of those teams didn't even play 3 games. So it just is going to be a crazy draft. I do think, like I said, if Rashawn Slater is there, that's no brainer. Like, pack it in. But I could see them taking a cornerback or an edge rusher. I do not think a wide receiver is a possibility because I think Brandon Staley knows that they need to either build the trenches or build the secondary up. I think those are the 2 biggest weaknesses. And it's kind of been what Brandon Staley has been talking about as well.
Opt-out situation will be interesting too with a lot of the guys like Rousseau or Caleb Farley. Any guy that kind of opted out that is in these top 3 rounds will be interesting. I remember when Brentley Weissman was on the show, he was kind of talking about, how do you compare Patrick Surtain's, third or, tape this year versus Caleb Farley's last year, right? Because it's kind of, different levels of development, all that kind of stuff. So I think it'll be interesting to see how stuff like that plays out through the draft, especially looking at kind of Chargers prospects and seeing what Telesco values, whether that's, second versus third year tape and stuff like that.
Yeah, I'd really interested to see how that. I don't think that would affect Slater, but some of these guys,
no,
I would love to see what they think of like Rousseau today, because we won't be able to watch any film on this guy, at least as far as 2020 is concerned. What has he gotten better at? What will he look like at his pro day? What will he look like for a bunch of, what are you even able to do at your pro day other than the measurables? Everyone knows about Gregory Rousseau and what a athletic talent he is, but has he learned how to do anything other than just, run straight, run fast, be athletic? Does he have any pass rush moves? So, I mean, like, I think Rousseau fell in this draft to 28 or something like that.
He's 27.
I could see that happening. 27. Like, I don't think Slater is going to fall, although I'd be very curious to see if his stock is affected at all. I doubt it. But Rousseau is definitely a guy I could see stumbling and sliding. And didn't Ojulari opt out too?
No, Ojulari played, but he's just young. He was a redshirt freshman, so this was his first year starting. So it just really depends, right? Like, Gregory Rousseau, he's a physical freak, man, and like he played a lot on the inside, he played a lot on the outside, and that was his. He redshirted as a freshman, so he basically was playing a freshman season, and he had 15 and a half sacks, like 22 and a half tackles for loss. Like it just takes one team to believe in somebody. And, if it feels like that's such a classic Vikings pick at 14, just taking a super freak defensive lineman and then, pairing him with a great defensive coach and let him develop. But, I think in this situation where he fell at 27, I think that is possible because there's just so much unknown about him. And, Rashawn Slater, there is some unknown about him, but there was 2 years of tape on him at 2 different positions. And, we saw him dominate games from the offensive tackle position. And I believe as right guard is where he started as a freshman. So it is going to be interesting. And I think, the draft board just on the Draft Network has changed so much in the last 2 weeks. And I think it's going to continue to change because it's such a weird year. Everything is going to be so different than what we're used to because of COVID and the opt-outs and the lack of a combine and all these different things.
Either way, the Raiders will blow it.
So I was just going to say, that. I think the combine is huge and not having that, because that's, Henry Ruggs became the 10th pick, speaking of the Raiders last year, because of that whole combine, right? And you had a bunch of guys that, because of their measurables, because of something they did at the combine or a team they spoke to, shot up the draft rankings, right? I think, Kenneth Murray had a lot of long talks with the Chargers kind of at the combine, and Tom Telesco was like, we love this guy. So if the combine doesn't happen, or if they don't get the meeting at the time they did, would they have traded up for Kenneth Murray last year? I don't know. So I think there's a lot of interesting ripple effects kind of in the draft that might happen like that.
The reason I mentioned earlier that I was looking at Virginia Tech's pro days because Caleb Farley says that he ran a 4.25 in high school, and I would love to see. And so he bumped up to my cornerback 1 based on that. Technically, I will completely remove that and move him down if that's not the case. But if he runs a 4.25, I mean, geez Louise.
If I was a corner or wide receiver, I would just say that I ran a 4.20 this year, and no one can technically disprove it.
No, it's true, but it's just going to be, the lack of a combine. I think that whole process has become more about like the interviews than the actual testing, because they're like stuff will go viral at the combine, like Netane Muti bench pressing 47 times or whatever it was, but he was still a 5th round pick. So like, it's more about the interview process nowadays than anything. And you never really know like what goes on in that situation and how that will affect people. We just have been talking about, the Isaiah Wilson situation and how the Tennessee Titans might be, just, wasting their 1st round pick because the guy doesn't even know if he wants to play football anymore. So, not having in-person interviews is just going to be such a big deal for these teams because they don't have that information, which, could lead to more senior bowl guys getting, vaulted up the board because that was the only time that teams could talk to them.
Yeah, I think it'll just be interesting to see, in an alternate reality, how the draft would have played out if it was just all the normal kind of beats of the season. And I also feel like maybe this year there's a bit more, drive from the media to change it up just for the sake of discussion. I'm not going to name any names, but Daniel Jeremiah had Jalen Waddle to the Chargers in his mock draft and other stuff like that, where it's just without the presence of the normal draft media, maybe there's just moves elsewhere.
I've soured on the media lately just because we're the Chargers fans and the media has been so off. I mean, we have Lombardi on Pat McAfee's show going, the Chargers are going to force their offensive staff on Brandon Staley, and the staff that they got was like completely different from many different places, the complete opposite of forcing your staff. Someone asked, Daniel Jeremiah is pretty close to the Chargers. He's plugged in. Like, I don't even believe that's the case. Like him taking a receiver at 13, I don't think that has anything to do with what he knows, to be completely honest. Or maybe it is based on what he knows, but it's bullshit. So for me, this whole media thing is very, very interesting. And I can't wait for us to all be wrong, because these mock drafts we take, I think in 2019, we all took Titus Howard in the 3rd round. And then he ended up going like at 24 to the Texans overall. So, which didn't work out, or so far, I don't think it's worked out. So, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. I mean, the Raiders took Cleveland Farrell. I mean, geez.
At 4, man. At 4. Oh, NFL teams will
over Devin White, I think.
Yeah, and they have Brian Burns there too, which would have, that would have been a great pick for them. Or Devin White. Yeah. Literally any other defensive player. But NFL teams will continue to surprise us, and I think this year is just going to be wild because of everything in that. And I did want to say, like, Daniel Jeremiah, he could be plugged into the Chargers, but he covers the team through radio. Like, he doesn't necessarily, like, he's not like
true.
Everything he says about the Chargers is gospel. Like, I think it's way too early for anybody to be really plugged in on where a team is headed, except for like, the obvious ones. Like, obviously the Jaguars are going with
the Jaguars.
So, it is what it is. I don't think that there's been any intel leaked from the Chargers to suggest that they would consider taking a wide receiver. And if that is the case, then, I would feel dumb, but I think the Chargers would feel dumber because that would be a terrible, terrible selection.
Also, who knows what intel to believe from the Chargers, because the Chargers told Adam Schefter they were hiring Brian Dable.
Yeah,
so
that is true.
There's stuff like that too.
That is very true. Good point, Alex. So please let us know what you thought of our mock draft in the comments, on the review, or on Twitter. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button if you learned something. We do appreciate all of the positive feedback. If you hate our picks, we appreciate that feedback too. Just make sure to be a little civil and be respectful.
Stop being racist. I get it. I'm Chinese, for the love of God. I can't open my eyes. I got glasses. I'm doing my best.
There we go. All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in. We will see you next time. And we appreciate all your continued support. And obviously, go Chargers.
Go Bolts.